What's up, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of Shot Tank with TST and JonBoyBeats. Mike has raised a ton of seed money and now realizes that he doesn't have to work nearly as hard. So he decided to bum out. I think Mike is doing stand-up today, so we'll miss him, but hope he crushes. How's everyone doing? How are you doing, TST?
I'm doing well. It's March break or spring break up here, so I had the week off. Just got back from visiting some family. Now started packing some boxes this evening, getting ready for a move in a week and a half. So a little hectic, but nice to have the week off work.
Well, hey, good thing you got into NFTs. You don't have to pack any of those up, right?
Exactly.
Utility, baby. How are you doing, John?
I'm good. I'm seeing KD just got rolled out.
Yeah. Got injured warming up
in pregame. And then I'm seeing Brandon Ingram also will not return, which is sick because he was my highest owned player tonight on Underdog. So I pretty much just chalk that up to now.
Damn. So it sounds like you're not doing the best.
Not really a great start for the night.
Damn. Well, hopefully Brandon Ingram comes back. Maybe
no, he's out. He's fucking out. They rolled him out.
Oh.
It's just
Damn. Well, it's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. All right. So today I think we've talked a lot about Top Shot recently because there's we had the AMA, we had the whole like Roham scandal, which is kind of attached to the AMA. We've had a lot of Top Shot talk recently. So I was thinking we start off with NBA SoRare, and then I'm sure we'll eventually bring up some Top Shot stuff because we couldn't stay away from that if we tried, apparently. All right. So the one thing that I thought was interesting, this is something that Andrew Laird and the boys at SoRare Data talked about in their live stream. I think it was today or yesterday. If you haven't heard it, I encourage you to go check it out. It's always really interesting hearing them talk because they're numbers guys, but they're numbers guys who have experience with the whole soccer side of things. But they're talking about how the marketplace is down in general. There's the pumps aren't as crazy as they used to be, and there's a couple of reasons for that. There's a lot of supply compared to the beginning of the season. The season's wrapping up, so if you're buying a card and that player is not in the playoffs, they have very limited utility. But it is a little depressing to watch, just all your values go down and checking your cards and seeing that they're all below what you paid. And I know you guys don't do that nearly as much as I do. But I was just curious because of that. What are your thoughts about like SoRare NBA as a whole, like in terms of marketplace health and like where things are trending? Because I think it's going to be kind of a long off season, and we haven't even gotten to the playoffs yet.
Yeah. I mean, I think definitely will be a long off season. I think that's no shortage there. I mean, I feel like we're still not in the point of the season where it's gotten super crazy yet with like tanking and weird lineups and stuff. And maybe we're getting close. It already feels like some of these teams are starting to do some weird stuff with some late rule outs and things like that. So I feel like there could be a little bit of life in some of these like G League bros that are may pop their way up onto a roster here over the next couple weeks still. So I'm not giving out hope on them, but anybody that's like an established star, I'll probably look to. I haven't really started yet, so maybe that's something worth talking about. And I'm probably late already because probably that's what everybody's doing. But start trimming things up and just kind of get into some playoff guys. But like also if they're a decently good player, like I might just hold them until next season and not really worry too much about it. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Have you been playing into the selling prior to playoff thing?
I haven't made any sales based on like that decision. Like I'll still kind of like if a player, like if I see a player that's like, you know, like a really good value play and I'm not going to use them, then I'll kind of always go look, have they pumped enough for me to like care to get off them? But like, you know, to what you had mentioned earlier, Jeb, sometimes like, oh, like the player went from $2 to $4. And I'm like, I don't know, like maybe I'll just hold on to him and then have him down the line. I haven't really approached it as like, I'm going to make a ton of money. I really approach it as like, I want to win. And like, that's how I'll be successful, is if I win like good prizes down the line. Now, am I maximizing what I could be? Absolutely not. But like I've just done it because it's more fun for me this way. It's the same thing like John saying, is like, am I going to sell out of these like top players that I know are like going to be good again next year? Probably not, just out of that. But like I was also thinking about earlier today, and I was like, should I just like clean the slate? Like even like, you know, like right now, try to like trim down almost completely to everything I'm not a lineup, and then just like, you know, these kind of like do a reset and spend my money again on like making all decisions versus, because like I've held a ton of my rewards, like probably like 90% of my rewards I've held because I'm like, oh, that player could use eventually. And then I've used a bunch and won with those rewards. So like, I think that's probably where I've done like the worst in my decision making, is that like when I win it as a reward, I'm like, oh, like that seems like it'll be useful down the line. And it has been many times. And it's also probably made me win things that I wouldn't, because I played a player just because I already had him, even though there was a better like projecting player out there. And then I just got lucky, or that player goes off. So I haven't looked at my value. I know that things are going down, just like when I look at any like player when I'm in it, but I haven't looked at like my overall collection as much as maybe like you should. But like maybe that's like a more fun way, or like a less stressful way to approach this all as well.
Yeah, I know, to John's point, there are some at least the Detroit Pistons have fully just decided to tank. I know Boyan is officially, or not officially, but kind of officially, unofficially out for the season. I think Diallo is, like, they're really, like, they've really cut back. Yeah, so, I mean, my Corey Joseph stack is looking nice for a couple weeks, but to your point, even the pump on that thing isn't crazy. Like, if this was like 20 weeks ago, that pump would be like way, way, way significantly higher. And so I think that's something that's interesting, is just like, I'm kind of always of the mindset that, you know, if I'm not selling for a massive profit, I'm just going to hold. Like, there's no point. Like, I look at percentages. So if it goes from 2 to 4, I'm willing to sell, because that's like a doubling up my money, even though it's not a lot. But if a player is like slightly above or even like below, I just don't think there's any reason to sell, because like you might as well just build up those percentages and hope you have a shot next season to flip him, or you know, play him in an optimal lineup, because his numbers like fall off at the beginning of the season, so he's a low cap, or I mean fall off at the end of this season, so maybe he starts with a low cap or something like that. Like, I think there will be a lot of opportunity week 1 of next year, but it is kind of wild just how, like, I don't know if I want to say dead the marketplace is. Like, that seems a little overreactionary, but just like things don't move like they used to. Like, people are not making a lot of buys. And part of it, I think, is also because, you know, you only really need 15, 20 moments or 20 cards to play a lineup each week. You don't have to keep buying and buying and buying unless you're chasing that high, or chasing like optimal plays that you think might be like that people aren't looking for.
I think that's do we think that that's coinciding with like general NBA fatigue though a little bit? Like, you know, this is like pretty fair to say this is like the shittiest part of the season, right? Where like I mean, there's not like the NBA playoffs are just such a beast to where like seeding doesn't matter as much, right? I mean, like I don't know.
And
I
a
mean,
lot of it's been decided too, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, like some of the bigger seeds have kind of locked things in, and even if you're looking at like the West, where there's a bunch of teams that are within a couple games, but even like, the Kings seem a little bit far out of reach for some of the, the other teams in like the 4 through 7 spot or whatever. So like, yeah, there's obviously, a little bit of jostling to get out of the 7 seed and not have to make the plan. But then even so, like, I don't know, it's not the same like late season energy that you see from like NFL, right? Where like one game really matters a lot and like it can kind of really swing standings and stuff like that. And like, that Bengals Bills was going to be a huge game for playoff implications and things like that. And so I think that that just kind of coincides a little bit with like losing some interest on it. And I'm interested to see how they roll out playoffs and what they do for playoffs. Because I think that could reinvigorate some things a little bit, and at least like, it might not, obviously only half the teams make it and whatever, and so like, a certain amount of the cards are gonna pretty much have no utility for quite a few months until October rolls around. But then, some of the cards might have a little bit more like demand to them, kind of depending how playoffs go. And I don't know. I'm not sure exactly how it's going to work, but I could see like right now I haven't been super locked into like tracking my stuff, and that's just because like, it's just, I don't know, it's just a weird time of the season. Like there's a lot of like people only playing one game a week, and like just like even the contenders are getting some rest now, right? Like Tatum sitting out games and like stuff like that, when he's just, they're just trying to save him for the playoffs. And so you're really just getting like some one gamers out of some of these guys, and so it's not as, thrilling, exhilarating to kind of see things go, because most of the time you're setting your lineup, you're like, it might not be that great by the time Wednesday rolls around or something. But I think when the playoffs start, I think there could be some more enthusiasm there. I mean, shit, the first month of the playoffs, or 20 days or whatever, is just awesome, right? 4 games a night, and it's just really, really fun stuff. So I think I would assume that there's going to be a little bit more marketplace demand as that starts to happen, but maybe not.
Yeah, and I think when you mix that in too with that, like, like Jeb mentioned, like you only need a certain amount of cards to play. So like people before, like if you needed to buy a card because your lineup didn't fit at all, well, when you go to that marketplace, you're gonna look at the nice projecting player and pick them up. Whereas if you already have like a bunch of choices, you're probably gonna pick like what's the best one I already have before you necessarily go to the marketplace. So like, it wasn't like when people were going to the marketplace, it was just like, oh, let's just like pick up whoever. It was usually pretty concentrated week by week. But then now the people that are playing regularly, they haven't fallen off, but like their galleries are so much bigger that they don't seek out the marketplace as much. And I think the last 3 to 4 game weeks, we've pretty much like been stable for participants, like maybe like 1% or 2% down. And it's kind of plateaued, and it was at a like steady climb up until that point. So with some like, different anomalies with different like timings for locks and stuff like that. So I think just that, like, even though you're stable, like you're constantly increasing supply with rewards, a lot of that stability like comes from like people not having to make any like marketplace moves. They can just keep rolling out the same guys they have been. So like, unless there's more contests or there's different, the threshold thing and all will always come up for basketball until they like, make a formal announcement about that one way. I don't think that's coming anytime soon, but I mean, we've talked about like eventually if you don't have to buy anything, then there's going to be a problem unless they keep adding users at a decent clip.
Yeah. No, I mean,
what do you guys think? Or how do you guys kind of think the playoff contests or picture is going to set up? Like, I doubt they do it just how they're doing it now, right? Where it's like the 4 games and the 3 games.
In baseball, they had done it by round at one point. Like, I don't know if they did it for the early ones, but I know definitely for the later ones when I was playing the baseball stuff, it was like the whole series. So it was like you make your team, and like it was really funny how many dead lineups were in like the World Series, especially for I think like the commons, because like you can't go buy anything with the commons. So it's just like I would play like 2 players and like finish like top 10% because just people didn't have them. And that like there wasn't swaps and all that, and like it was very different than the way the NBA is, and like the season was shorter, so everyone's galleries, even just speaking for common, was much smaller because people hadn't had time to build up. So I imagine like we'll see something like that, but like I don't know if early on I would like that. I don't know. I'd be interested to hear your guys' opinions. Like definitely when we hit like conference finals, like I think it should be, but like first round, like we're getting, games every night still. It will be like, it's another interesting wrinkle to be like, all right, like they're up 3-0. So this might be 1 game. Whereas like this is a guaranteed 2 games over here. So like that stuff would be fun, but I mean, I wouldn't hate if they said,
do you think it'd be cool? Do you think it'd be cool if they extend the game week so it's a whole week, so that way, a player can have like 3 or 4 game, or probably it would be 3, but so that way it's not 2 every week, it'd be 1 every week, but the first round's probably going to end up being 2 of those longer game weeks, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Like I think early on they could split it pretty nicely the way the schedule works. Like I think like everyone usually
it's relatively routine pretty early on.
Yeah, it's only later when like 2 teams have finished early and they want to get that like second nationally televised game in on like the weekend where you have the like series that ended. But I think for the first round, you could like split it to have like every player has 2 games in the first 2 game weeks, and then after, obviously, it depends on what happens.
Yeah.
Are you guys doing?
Well, I think go ahead.
I was gonna say, are you guys doing any strategy for the playing games? Because I would imagine there's a separate contest just for that. And that one's super interesting because you're kind of, you don't want to bet on the best team because they probably only have 1 game. Like you want, and you don't want to bet on the worst team because they only have 1 game too. You're trying to bet on the second and the third guys.
You want to bet on who's going to win the low seed one and lose the high seed one, which is like, but again, like that variance too, like it's like, okay, like because it's only 1 game, which is also like the different thing in baseball, right? Like baseball is cumulative. So like it was better for your guys to play more games. So like you wanted like the team not to sweep, etc. So in this case, it's like, okay, it's 1 game versus 2. And it's like 1 game that matters. So for the most of your players that you're picking, like they should be pretty like hitting like what if their team's winning, they should be producing, right? So like how much do you want a losing team there too?
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, I think that will be super interesting. And I
was going to show Jules here his comment, would love like a month-long one. And I think I was thinking about it more from the standpoint of like what OTM did for Rumble in the playoff contest, where it was all playoffs long. And I think that would be kind of interesting if they had a playoff long contest and then also the game weeks or whatever, because then you'd kind of have to like decide a little bit, like if like I have a Giannis, right? So it's like, okay, like do I want to bet on the Bucks to make the playoffs and or to make the finals, and Giannis having 4 series of games and be good in this season or playoff long contest, or do I want to just play him every game week, and like be able to get more prizes that way?
But so like if that was the case, and Jules, feel free to put like what your idea, if it's different, is like, would it still be following the same thing where it's just their best game ever? Because then like your guy going deep in the playoffs doesn't matter that much. It's more just like getting those guys that go off big. So like putting your Giannis in there might be at your disadvantage.
No, they would have to set it up so where it would matter to go long. So I would say like maybe it would take a player's best 2 scores from each series, right? That they play in. And if they don't play 2 series, then they have like a leg down on somebody else. But I feel like that's a interesting concept to like think through, because even in that, it's like, okay, like would you see like people playing like what's a good example? Like like if you bet on the Bucks to make the finals, right? Would you just do a big buck stack? Or I mean I guess with only 5, so that's where it would make sense. I would want to see him have like 10 players or something, right?
Okay.
Where you would have to set up like a 10-player lineup, because then you'd have to make some decisions on like, okay, do I play Bobby Portis, who's like, I don't know, maybe gonna cap out at like 25 or something, but he could have 4 series, or do I play like a Luca who's going to have a couple 60s, but he may only have 2 series or something, and like kind of doing some of that math, I think would be pretty interesting. And the like the best part is it would give people more options of where to tie up their cards to, right? Because like now as things condense in the playoffs, it's just gonna basically, if you have the best player left, you're gonna have such a leg up, right? Like right now there's still some you know uh determination on like, okay, who's the best player to play every week between the top like 5 guys, now that Dame's been kind of going crazy and Bede's been kind of going crazy, even AD a little bit there. There's 5 or 6 like guys who all were kind of competing for really that top spot. But like let's say it's Bucks Kings, like one of the more realistic finals matchups out there. Obviously Giannis over Fox and Sabonis is like going to be, projection wise, is going to be a pretty big gap there. So everybody with Giannis is kind of going to have a boost. So I don't know. I think that part's going to be interesting. And so as we see the playoff contest go down, like if there was more options for those people to spread out some of those big cards into the playoff long contest, would be really fun. But we might just be kind of shooting for the moon here.
Even if they don't switch it up like too crazily, it will be interesting to see what they do with like the side competition that changes, right? Like if they threw it like U23 at us in the finals, and it's like, like true, that could be like weird, but like, or like imagine like it was the finals and like, like there's a Western Conference competition as well. Like it would just like be so weird. So like maybe we see a underdog one there, Jeb's favorite, or like a no cap or something. And like those, I would say a no cap might actually make most sense of all the ones we've seen. Just because like when you get to that point, it's like it's going to be tougher to like, I guess, fit people in. I guess it would be tougher more for contender, because like I guess when we get that deep, like in champion, there isn't going to be as many people at a high cap on the team or whatnot. So are you guys like, have you guys like made any buying decisions based on playoffs, or like or looking at to do so or anything?
For my rare contender, I decided I was gonna buy, instead of playing Frankie Smokes as my 5th, I was gonna buy because I had a little extra cap, and I did buy a Ricky Rubio rare instead of a Corey Joseph rare, because Rubio is going to be in the playoffs, I figured, but might have been a mistake because Corey Joseph is an animal, which we all know, and he did pretty well this game week already, and he still's in our game. But I haven't gone out and like bought anything for the playoffs for sure. I've just been I feel like I might make some purchases in the near future. But I feel like it's definitely something to slow roll here, because I don't really know what to expect from the marketplace.
Yeah.
Well, Luca just got ruled out for tonight midway through the game. What the fuck is going on, dude? This is just a weird injury night.
Well, I mean, were they down? Like they're down like 20. Were they already down that big? Or was this like a?
No, like he got
weird.
hurt. He
oh, jeez.
Thigh, something with his thigh, and says he won't return.
Maybe he just got bruised. Jeez.
I've sort of looked at. I would say I've more like looked at not selling players, and then like when I am buying players, it's kind of in the back of my mind. But I haven't like gone out and necessarily made a bunch of purchases. But I have like when I'm choosing between 2 guys, kind of like what you did. But I did it more like on actually like kind of mapping out like potential like matchups. So like for example, I have a rare Giannis. So like in my like mind, like having another like Western Conference level MVP, like basically that means like I'll be hoping the Bucks make the finals, like just because I have that card. And then like I need essentially like players that are low enough cap either on his team or on the other team so that I can fit in the other players. and then you're not gonna like potentially fit in like the other best player on the other team. So it's not like you need like the two best players. You need like the best kind of combination. So like I have like an Aaron Gordon, for example. I have a Bruce Brown, and those are like, well, if I have a Nuggets Bucks matchup, like I have like some decent lineup opportunity already. And then it might like incline me of like going to pick up a guy because I actually have a competitive one because I won a Middleton as well. So I have like four for like a Bucks Nuggets, but like I wouldn't ever like entertain the thought of like needing a Jokic in that situation because it's just like I'm betting on Giannis to have higher scores than Jokic and have another thing. The other thing is like what's his name? Alondas Williams. I feel like this could be like an opportunity for people the later we get in the playoffs that his style lineup, it'll never win. It'll never win. It'll never be like the top prize, but it will allow people to cash because he has a -3. And then and then you need only other 4 other players. And then like when, you know, it's like you can't fit in these people, like, because the other thing is that the bench is going to tighten. So like a lot, like not just like the number of players playing, like they play less and the starters play more minutes. So like these like guys that were like around that like 20 cap that you're like, oh, I hope he goes off for like a 30 or 40. It's like, it happens less often in the playoffs, I would say. So like when that's going to happen, like our caps are going to get a little wonky too, the further we get in the playoffs, like those second and third players that like you're trying to squeeze in your second and third spot, those caps are going to go up as like the team advances for the most part. And then those other players are just going to be not as much going over their cap when they hit. So like, that'll be kind of like interesting to see how that shakes out, which again bodes well for throwing in a -3 in your lineups.
Yeah, no, I think, I mean, you can cash right now with Alondas. I've done it 2 or 3 times this season where like playing him allows me to squeeze in like a big boy that I usually would never be able to fit in a contender. So I think 100% it'll pop off in the playoffs, and that'll be like a super, super good strat to like, maybe you don't take down the whole thing. I bet you can get top 100 with an Alondas in the later rounds for sure. We think so? They didn't do this for the World Series, and I didn't really even think this was a thing they could do until the World Cup. But do you think we see any type of World Cup promo like contest like they did for NBA SoRare? Because I think that would be absolutely incredible. But the flip side is like, oh boy, you might be putting a bunch more supply into circulation without a guarantee of like a ton of new users.
I 100% think that the commons are going to be that. It's going to be draft style. I thought it was going to come for All-Star, and I think I think the fact that the teams weren't announced made it more difficult for them to have anything prepared from that standpoint. But I 100% think that when we hit playoffs, the commons are not going to be how we have them now. It's going to be completely the draft style that you see, that we saw in the World Cup, and then that we saw as well, or we see right now for all the different soccer leagues for the common ones. And what's nice about that is that like it allows a new user to do it, right? Like you can recommend it to a friend, you know, someone can see an ad and be like, oh, boom, like I'm on equal playing field as everyone else in these like free contests. I can have just as much fun. I don't have to like look at my collection. It's like, oh, I only have like 4 playoff players, like kind of like how it was for baseball for me, right? Like when I got to the end, I was like, well, this isn't fun anymore. I'm just like firing in my 2 guys and hoping.
Yeah. So I forget how it worked for the World Cup. Was it 5? I think it was 5 rounds, right? I forget how they did
like
the game
drafting
weeks,
rounds. You mean they did 4? I think,
or 6 maybe. No, I think 6, 4. Right? Because isn't the most games a team could play with 6?
Yeah, but we didn't get to redraft. We didn't get to redraft. We got to set our lineup, I think, 6 times, but we only got to redraft 3 or 4 times, I think.
Yeah, I think it was
so
4.
That could be maybe how they set it up. for the playoff long one, right? Where you get the because like right now they've been doing that for La Liga, right? They have like the draft available, but that's just like per game week, right? And you just like get a new salary cap the next week or whatever, right?
Well, you basically can trade in what you have
yeah
for like what their cap is now, and then you get to spend that. So you're kind of like more doing like transfers a bit, and then like with the I think for the redraft thing, like it was more like adding players. You could add players as you went, and you were winning players too. So they could do that like round by round, like after the first round,
I think they'd have to do
players.
I think they could do it to where you add players, and then I think they would also have to do it to where your lineup would have to be like 7 or 8 guys or 10 guys or something, because like there would just be, because like with soccer, it's just such a volatile sport, right? Where the scoring is like it's just so dependent on like a goal or an assist or like a shutout or whatever. And with the NBA, it's just not that volatile, like across the board, right? Like you can roughly predict the range that everybody's going to score in for the most part, right? Over a series or whatever. And so that's where I think the having more, because like if not, there's just going to be a bunch of duplicated lineups like in the finals, I feel like. And maybe there wouldn't be as much because maybe you made some better decisions early on or something, but like it just wouldn't be that fun of a finals sweat, to where if you had to craftily fill out 8-man roster or something in the finals, and you had to make sure like your decisions from the last couple rounds like helped,
I guess if
like that was the part I loved about the World Cup, is like I went through like all these iterations, like, okay, like how can I make sure like I got enough bros like in each round, and like get all the studs at the right time in order to make sure that when it's these combinations in the final, like I still have those studs available and stuff like that. And like, I don't know, there's a little bit of like strategy to that. And like, not that I mean, I think I finished all right, but I mean, whatever. I didn't like win anything crazy, but it was just like fun to kind of like think through that,
Yeah. And then like when upsets would happen, a player would get eliminated. You're like, well, I guess I have to spend a bunch of my budget on this guy to replace this position because the backup I have is garbage. So I think that would be really, really cool. And to your point, John, if they did like 10, 15 players you had to play, then you couldn't just stack up like a Giannis, Embiid, Jokic like lineup and just let it like ride without like there has to be definitely some sort of strategy to it for sure.
Yeah, but I think also just if they make it, because in soccer they do team constraints, right? Like you can only draft 2 of the same team.
Yeah.
So like you can make it so it's like you have to make like early bets, like you have to bet each round, but like by doing so, you're not getting like the best players in that round. So it's kind of like if you go for like the win, you might pull like the best card of a superstar, but that's like more by chance and like is luck. Whereas like if it's you that has to like make your decision, okay, I think that it's going to be Bucks Kings in the finals, then like I'm taking De'Aaron Fox and Sabonis right away, and then I'm taking Giannis and like a bench player, and then every round I'm just going to try to add one of them and one of them, and I'm not going to have ultimate lineups until the very end.
Yeah.
But like if your score is cumulative the whole time too, then like there's this balance of you have to score big early. So you need players that aren't going to make the finals that are going to score well, but then you also need to have enough left at the end. So,
well, and then it gets into like kind of the whole best ball way of things too, where it's like, oh, maybe I don't want to pick up a Giannis round 1 because they're probably going to sweep. So I want to maybe pick up like a Donovan Mitchell or something like that, because that game could go 6 or 7, and that's going to give me a big advantage. So even if they lose, he's done his part, and now I can use my budget to replace him for this next round, something like that. I think that would be a lot of fun. I would be geeking about that for sure. I would spend way too much time building out lineups for that. Cool.
Courtside has an interesting question. So is it smart to play the last round of the finals or sell those cards before lock? Like I think it's the very last one, What would you do? Like, say you have a competitive, like you might not have your ideal, but like you have a competitive one. Would you rather sell or play?
That's what I was going to say. I think it truly comes down to is if you think you have a shot. Like, you don't have to have the elite squad. Like, you don't need, like, let's say it's like Kings, Bucks. You don't need Sabonis and
two votes
Fox.
for Kings Bucks tonight.
You don't need Sabonis and Fox and Giannis and Middleton to compete. But if you're able just to fill out a lineup, but you're missing like at least one of those studs, I probably would lean towards selling, just because I feel like if Embiid or Giannis or Jokic or I'm trying to think, like Tatum, if some of these like MVP caliber players,
he's on the Bucks.
No. Neither is Embiid. But the point is, if any of those whatever teams make it to the finals, if one of those like high usage guys makes it, I feel like you kind of got to have him in order to like really take a shot at like placing well. I mean, maybe you can place a little bit in like at the tail end of the money. There's
gonna be so many dead lineups too. Like you'll be able to cash if you just have 5 players. Like you might be able to do decent. Like,
so the thing that I would say is like so let's say you win a tier 1 rare. Every other game week of the year, that tier 1 rare is valuable. And then all of a sudden, right after the finals are over, that tier 1 rare isn't as valuable for the next, 4 or 5 months. So I feel like, I mean, obviously I'm still going to play it because, whatever. But the plus EV play would be to probably sell it.
Yeah, almost certainly. Like,
unless I don't think a tier 1 rare.
I don't know. I just kind of made it up.
But
generally speaking, the value of your reward isn't going to be
talking tier 2, probably. Tier 1 might be like the exception. For like what will be worth like to sell out or not. What I know I will do is that I will play a lineup if I can play a lineup, even if it's as shitty as possible, just because I want to play. But what I hope I do is that I sell everything that's not in that lineup that like could be. And that's probably like how you want to play kind of the playoffs is like, if you think a player is going to be eliminated after that game week and he's not like in your lineup or part of like your best plan. Like if you're like, oh, like this guy could like, it's a toss up between these 2 role players. And you think one of them, this might be like, when they're eliminated in the playoffs and this is the last game week to play them, then that's probably like the best time and best way to trim your collection as you go through to be able to play and still maximize, because there'll still be like some attention on them. Obviously not when the team's down 0-3 because everyone's going to be thinking that. But like if it's like 2-2,
that's the time to buy because they're about to make a comeback.
Yeah, and you get them for all that game week when there's no games in the other ones. But
exactly.
Like if it's like a situation where it's 2-2 and we're about to start a game week and you're like, no, this team's going to lose, then that's kind of how you can make your bets. And I think that's like a fun thing too, is that like, if you wanted to, you could make, you could just, I'm going to build my like ideal Kings Bucks lineup and I'm going to ride this for the playoffs because I know that that's going to be the finals. And like, that's kind of just a different way to gamble on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, for me personally, I won a Drew Holiday rare, and I missed the window where I could sell him for like 180. I don't even know what he's at right now. I think he's at like 120, 130. And I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna save this for the playoffs. Like maybe there's an opportunity I could use it, but I think he's going to hold more value in the playoffs regardless. And there's no way. I mean, it's. I'm pretty sure they're going to make it past the first round at least. So I think it'll be a pretty safe play to hold on and like see what happens and see what the contests are. Because I think to John's point at the beginning of when we were discussing this, like when they announce the contest, if they're sick, like if people are really into them, I do think it really invigorates the market a bit as people kind of gear up and get excited about basketball again.
It also just focuses the marketplace, right? Like John said, only half the teams are in there basically, like especially after the play-in. Like it's like just that focus like just changes the dynamics by quite a bit.
Yeah. And
I
to
mean, I think
AJ's
it's pretty clear that like starting this week, if you haven't already, you should try to sell off non-playoff teams of like I mean, like I have a Shea Rare, like I'm not gonna sell that, right? But like, for anybody else, like, for the type of players that like aren't good, and are on shitty teams, like if they're a fringe NBA player and they're in a shitty team, like even if they're get you, 20 to 30 points a week, like I don't really see a whole lot of reason to hold on to them for next year. Like
yeah.
there's so much shit that happens in the off season and like so many player movement and so much stuff that like just like sell, come back in August and like start like or September or whatever and start like looking at some lineups and like I'm sure there's going to be a window to like buy prior to the season a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. And to AJ's point, I mean that's one of the reasons why I held on to Drew, because I was like, you know what, I'll just build his XP, and if I want to sell him, it catches people's eye because it's a more valuable card because it has a little extra XP. And if I play him, then I have an edge over someone else who might have just bought a Drew rare. So
Yeah.
I definitely agree with that point. Like once again, I think part of it courtside is like I feel like you almost have to make a decision before the contest is announced if you're going to go for it or not. Because you don't want to be in that situation where you're caught in the middle and then you make a decision after things have pumped and after people know what the contests are, because you're like you didn't sell anything but you didn't buy anything either. So I would say just like kind of figure out what you're thinking of doing, and then uh, try to prepare slowly. I wouldn't go and drop a bag right away on just getting everything you think you need, but I would just say start watching some cards, start like figuring out what you think would be an optimal lineup. We don't know how many cards you'd have to play or anything like that, but I think I think it's important to kind of know, or even just look at individual cards and be like, you know what, I'm gonna play with this card because I'm cool holding on to this throughout the off season and playing with it next season, or like, hey, you know what, this guy might do well in the playoffs, but I really am not excited about this player, and this is not a player I'm really interested in holding long term. I think that's a good way to approach it as well. But yeah,
Agreed. Should we rip a playoff draft on Underdog?
dude,
Hell yeah.
I'm
And
down.
we could talk through some more playoff hoops.
Yeah,
Yeah.
'cause we've been talking pretty much playoffs the whole time, so it's right on
Yeah. This is
cue
good.
here.
No, dude, I'm so excited for these playoffs. I think
So we stacking Bucks and Kings here? Or what?
Bucks Kings, baby. So here's okay. I think, mate. Let me find something else here to share. All right.
oh my
Let's
gosh.
not get too carried away. But obviously, I've got a spreadsheet for this. But I think this is valuable stuff for people that are caring about the underdog stuff. So I've been pretty heavy in the underdog streets lately. On the daily, the kind of the daily NBA contests. But the way that the structure is right now, and I'll kind of go through this, is it's set up in like the way that current draft position is set up is there some pretty like basic tiers. And so what I have right here is like their percentage to make the finals and then percentage to win the finals.
Oh
And
wow.
that's just from 538. And so essentially, there's the tier ones, which I've basically have included as Denver, Milwaukee, Boston, Philly, Phoenix, and I threw Golden State in there. And so it's
Hmm.
the tier one is like basically the studs from like the teams that have a good shot of making the finals. So that's all the guys, Jokic, Giannis, Tatum, all those guys that you're pretty much used to. And I have John there from Memphis, but who the fuck knows what's going to happen with that. That's kind of the tier one is like the studs. And then from an ADP standpoint, it kind of goes into like a mixture of like this tier two, which would be the studs that are from teams that aren't as likely to make the finals. So you have like Luca, Kyrie, Mitchell, Randall, Kawhi, uh, Brunson, Jimmy Butler, Bam. And then you have like the fringier guys from the teams that will make the finals, like Aaron Gordon, Brooke Lopez, Marcus Smart, those kind of players.
Mhm.
And then from there, it kind of the end of the drafts is where you want to kind of take some flyers on some studs where of some teams that don't have a great chance at making the finals right now, but are going to make the playoffs, right? So like your Cleveland's, your Sacramento's, Brooklyn is one of my favorite teams to go after, Minnesota, stuff like that. And then you can start reaching for like the really scrub guys on the finals contenders, like the Grayson Allens, the Grant Williams, stuff like that. But it just depends kind of how you set your draft up in that way. So that's kind of the general because part of what really matters for this stuff is understanding like what the ADP is, right? So
Mhm.
because when you are drafting in these playoff competitions, like you want to set yourself up to do well in the finals, right? So you want to have at least 5 players that can play in the finals if you make it to that round. And for those of you watching for the first time who've never played it, essentially it's 4 rounds long. So you draft a team of 10 players. You have to start 1 guard, 1 wing, 1 big, and then you have 2 utility players. And the rounds are, the first round, second round, third round, finals, right? So it's pretty straightforward. They advance the teams after that, and so each round you want to make sure you have enough players to field the team. But then in the finals, you want to make sure you have 5, right? Because then you have the best chance of getting the prize up top. And so the difference, I'll say, because a lot of people have probably played the NFL contest for playoffs, and that's a lot of fun. But the big difference is, in the NFL, right? So if you think about like the Super Bowl, right, and a guy like Kadarius Toney or something, right? Or like a guy like Kenneth Gainwell, like they could have big games in the Super Bowl in a 1 game sample, and they could really differentiate your lineup, right? But in the NBA Finals over a 5 to 7 game series, it like that's just not going to happen, right? There's not really going to be those outlier performances. Like a Grant Williams isn't just all of a sudden going to outscore Jason Tatum for 5 games straight or whatever, right? And so it doesn't help you as much to have a ton of players that make the finals. Like you basically just want 5 players to make the finals, maybe 6 if you're getting crazy and you want to have an extra option. But every player over that, I think you're really giving up opportunity and you're paying opportunity costs in order to make each of the rounds, right? Because every time you draft a Grayson Allen or a Grant Williams, you could have drafted, maybe somebody that could have scored a lot better for you in round 1 and give you a better odds to advance. So, anyways, it's
Mhm.
a balance of trying to, get a good team in the finals, but also get a lot of studs on your roster that'll help you through the first couple rounds. And a lot of that is just kind of generally knowing where draft position is going. So we'll hop into one of these in the dance. It's 100K up top, so it's a little bit enough to get the juices flowing. But yeah, it's a six team or 6 team draft. So right off the bat, what are some of your guys's what are your leans on who's going to do well here in the playoffs?
So I
Who are we
mean,
feeling confident in?
what pick do we have here? We have 4.
We got the 5th pick.
Okay, 5th pick. So I mean, interesting. So I mean, right
So
off the
like
bat, it's like
Denver and Milwaukee, Boston are the 3 teams that are um, most of their players get drafted the earliest. Denver is kind of interesting because you got Jokic, Murray, Gordon, and basically Michael Porter, and then everybody after that is like maybe a 10th round pick.
mhm.
Boston is a lot different because there's just so many guys that can score well. Between when you get to that kind of mid tier after Tatum and Brown, where you get to the Smart, White, Horford, Williams, um, and Brogdon, right? There's a lot of guys that can kind of score better. So they're a little bit deeper. The Warriors are kind of interesting, I think, because Steph is going like in the second round, and then most of the other Warriors are going like towards the end of the draft. And I mean, I know they haven't been very healthy this year, but I mean, they're just as live as anybody to make a run for it if
Yeah,
everybody's healthy.
before like an hour ago, I would have said take KD because I feel like you can get KD and Booker, but people are saying that injury looked bad, and so I'm super hesitant on picking him and betting on that right now.
Yeah.
Gosh, I don't know. I feel like if Embiid's kind of interesting if he drops all the way to you, just because he's a guy that could put up big numbers. And then on top of that, I don't think the 76ers are winning any series on a sweep. Uh,
Right. The
so
bummer about Embiid is it's hard to get. There's not a really good wing on Philly except for Tobias Harris.
yeah,
Um,
well, he
but
would
I
be more of
mean,
a one-off, I think, in this case.
yeah, that's a good point. So we could try to build. We could try to build a
We have
Warriors
three
kind of
seconds.
super team here. I got Embiid queued up, so he'll be good.
Oh, okay, okay.
So we could try to build a Warriors super team, and we could take either. So it's either that, or we try to build a Dallas super team or a Memphis super team.
I
Well,
would
what?
Warriors sounds good to me. I think they have a real outside shot at winning it all.
So this will be pretty fun. So
You're
basically,
muted, TST.
oh, anything against the Warriors, CSC? It's too late. We already took Steph. You're still muted. You're still muted. You're still muted.
I feel like
There we
Cleveland
go.
is like
Cleveland's good.
players are in an interesting draft position. That
Yeah.
Yeah,
you
Cleveland's going
can
pretty late. Like Donovan Mitchell is going pretty late, and then most of the other guys are at the end. So
You
so
can get
now what we're
Mobley
gonna
at the
try to
end.
do. What's that?
I said you can get Mobley at the end, which I think is kind of crazy.
Yeah. So now what we're gonna try to do is we're gonna queue up. Oh, so the Warriors are. You can see like where this draft position is, right? So Clay's 5th round, and then like Poole, Wiggins, and Draymond are in like the 8th, 9th round.
Mm-hmm.
And then DiVincenzo, Looney, Kaminga are all pretty free. So I would be inclined to try to get Clay on this team, but I also don't care that much because I think Wiggins is pretty well
Yeah,
used in the playoffs.
was gonna say
Um,
that.
and he's, they're always going to play him. And so like if I can get Curry, Wiggins, Draymond, then I have a guard, a wing, and a big, and that's like pretty solid because then you can kind of do whatever you want with the East. So just looking at like some of the best East players left, if Luke falls, we're just going to draft Luka because that's just
Do
way
you
too
think?
late. He
Do you
shouldn't be
think
going in the
getting?
third round.
Do you think getting Luca or John Morant would be a good move at this point, or just
Yeah,
Luca?
Ja, I think is a little bit more of a stretch. I mean, we have our own opinions on that. I guess we didn't really talk about that. Um, and maybe we could do that after this draft. But I think Ja is fine here. He sometimes goes a little bit later, but so we need to kind of start thinking about Milwaukee East teams here. So we have Embiid,
I'd take
and then
Mitchell then.
Lopez just went. So it's either basically Mitchell or Randall, or Middleton.
I'd say
What do you?
Mitchell because he's the number one, and then you already have a big, right? So
Yeah,
I
I
think
wouldn't worry too much about the positions that much.
okay.
I'm more worried about how far you think a team's going to go.
I think Cleveland goes further than New York. That's for sure.
Okay,
Yeah,
I like it.
I feel like we could get a decent Cleveland stack here. That if they were to like
Yeah,
sneak
yeah,
through,
we can get quite a bit of Cleveland. So like so what I'm gonna try to do here is I'm gonna try to get 4 Warriors. That way I have some outs here, and I'm actually gonna take Middleton ahead of Randall if he falls to me here.
I like that.
Just because I want some Milwaukee exposure. So essentially how this team is basically gonna set up is 4 Warriors and then a bunch of like 1 or 2 offs from the East. Um, and well, I
Mm-hmm.
guess we'll see how everything falls here. But like, I am always trying to leave a draft with like at least some Bucks and some Celtics, just because I think like based on the odds, like those are the 2 East teams that are kind of quite a bit far and ahead. And I just don't want to be like completely dead if one of them makes it. So
Yeah,
we'll take
I think
Middleton here. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say last year we kind of knew going into the playoffs it was Celtics or Bucks from the beginning. I think it's definitely the same this year too. I think the 76ers have an outside chance, but I think it's one of those two is probably more likely.
Yeah. So I'm gonna queue up the Warriors here, just to get them on the screen, and then we can see like the rest of the. Oh, so I'll say a strategy point real quick. So like right now, I'm only focused on the East because I know I'm gonna basically go with the Warriors stack.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm only focused on Eastern Conference to pair with them, unless like something crazy happens and a Western player stud like drops super far or something. Like if
Like Sabonis.
Kawhi was gonna go, yeah, Kawhi or Sabonis was gonna go in like the 7th round or something, then maybe I'd like take them.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I'm only focusing on the East. And so it seems like things might just fall to taking
Brogdon.
Clay here.
Would it
And
make
just
sense?
kind of
Would it make sense to skip Clay and get Brogdon because he's in the East, and then you're going to get Wiggins later, or would it make
so the
sense to
thing
get
with
Clay?
Brogdon
Oh, someone
is
stole
Just
Clay.
get Clay.
oh, okay, well that's good. So yeah, so then we're gonna go. So then we want to take a Boston, and here's the 4 Boston players that are all relatively the same ADP. So
Mm-hmm.
who do you guys like out of this group?
Brogdon or White?
Brogdon or White over the
I
bigs?
take Brogdon.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
take Brogdon too.
Yeah, so if he makes it, then we'll take Brogdon.
Yeah, you can't really trust Horford or Time Lord, unfortunately.
Right.
Yeah,
And then
but
White's like good, but he just doesn't play.
Yeah, White's super good. I'm such a big Derek White fan, but oh, look at that! Look who decided to show up.
So we're gonna go Brogdon here, and then I'm gonna X out of the rest of these Celtics for now, and then we're just gonna kind of see how things go. So I don't hate taking a Mobley here to pair him up with Mitchell, and just hoping the Cavs do some things. I don't hate taking Jimmy Butler either, because my wings are pretty
He's a
shitty.
dog.
And then I'm pretty strong at guard, so I don't really need a Brunson, but I'm gonna want to take. So I have the 32nd pick, and then I have 41st. So at 41, I'm definitely gonna take Wiggins and knock out that guard if he's still there. So now I basically got Mobley or Jimmy. So what? I think I'm gonna go Jimmy here,
really,
just
Do you think
because I
do
need
you think the
some
Heat get out of
wing.
the first round?
I mean, I think they could, but I just need some wing scoring on this team, I think. And like Wiggins is good, but like I have Embiid and Curry who are live to be the, you know, I mean, Curry's not live to be the highest scoring guard because it'll probably be Luka. But in the first round, but Curry's like probably going to be top 3 guard in the first round, and Embiid's probably going to be top 2 big in the first round, right? So
Yeah.
like within this pod, I'm feeling pretty good at those positions. So I want to try to get some depth at the wing to give me some swings there. And so and Mobley is probably going to fall a little bit, and then also Jarrett Allen. I mean, Mobley's
that's true.
Mobley's better, but like Jarrett Allen's a little bit of a safety blanket there for Cleveland.
Well, and Butler can probably help you get through that first round because the Heat might get eliminated in the first round, but it's probably going 6 or 7 games.
Right.
So actually, the more you talk about that, it makes a lot of sense. I like that.
So I've got 4 picks left, and I got to get. I actually have to get 3 of them with Warriors here. The way that we built this out, because we only have pretty much one from a bunch of teams. So I just kind of got to hammer some Warriors here. And we're gonna go. So I think we're gonna just go Wiggins and Draymond, and then if Poole doesn't come back around, we can take like Looney, Kaminga, or DiVincenzo. But at
You
least
put Draymond above Poole
because you need the
positionally,
big, right?
because I have because
got
I
it.
want to make sure, like, so that's like one of the strategies that you want to, like, the easiest strategy in this is to set yourself up with a guard, a wing, and a big from the same team, because then you can kind of like do whatever the fuck you want for the finals,
Got it.
or for the rest of for the rest of the draft. And so, and like at this point of the draft, the average draft position, the ADP, doesn't really matter that much because you're just trying to make sure your teams are like strategically set up well. So like I went up for Wiggins, went up for Draymond, but I'm like not too worried about it because I just needed to make sure I had those Warriors. So now like Poole would be best case scenario. That's my fourth Warrior. And now I have a 5-man lineup with fucking 5 different Eastern Conference teams, right? Which is pretty sick.
Ooh, Mikal Bridges is down there. That looks.
Yeah, so I've been hammering Mikal Bridges.
Yeah, I think that's
and
very sharp.
Dinwiddie, because like I don't know, Brooklyn's just kind of like fun now. Mikal's been going off. Dinwiddie's been going off. Neither of them are playing tomorrow, so tomorrow should be a really interesting Brooklyn game. Fire up your Cam Thomas picks.
He's out too.
Cam Thomas is out?
Yeah.
Jeez.
I thought it was just Cam Johnson.
Oh, maybe it was Cam Johnson.
Cam Johnson's
some Cam's out. Some Cam's out tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyways, I like taking some Nets. So we might get lucky and get some Poole droppage here.
I think, yeah. Let's not jinx it here.
But Kale went off the board. So like Embiid, like I would like another big because if Embiid loses early, you know, I'm not feeling great about just riding Draymond. Like if I need Draymond to get me out of the conference finals and it's only Draymond, I'm not feeling too good about it. So we did get Poole, so that's big.
That's huge.
So we'll take Poole. So we got the 4 best Warriors. And then we've got
better than Clay?
Yes.
Oh yeah, you're right. I did miss out on Clay. I forgot we didn't get Clay.
We got 4 out of 5.
4 out of 5. So we're feeling good about Curry because in this draft, they're making the finals. Curry's going to be the leading scorer of the guard. We're not feeling great at the bigs because we just would have Draymond. And I feel like we're feeling pretty good about Wiggins in the finals because, like, I don't know. There's the wing is just such a weak position. Just overall, so I'm not too worried about that. So now I think I want to try to get a big in here, and if Mobley's still here, I mean that's like pretty sick. Because otherwise we're going for like really nobody, Mitchell Robinson or something like that. So and Mobley fell, so that's a winner in my book. Huge. I like that a lot.
That's a good lineup there.
Yeah, this is a fun one. So we got Curry. We got a finals matchup of Curry, Wiggins, Draymond, and Poole. And then we compare them with either Chris Middleton. We compare them with Malcolm Brogdon. We compare them with Mobley and Donovan Mitchell. We compare them with Jimmy. So we got a lot of outs. And Embiid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if the Warriors make it to the finals, this lineup is cooking.
Yeah, I mean that's like that's kind of why, in my opinion, it makes sense to try to do a little bit of a portfolio of these things, right? Because you kind of have to make like some bets like that when you're drafting, right? Like it doesn't really do you any good to just draft like, I don't know, 2 players from like a bunch of teams, right? Because then like the most you're going to have is 4 players in the final or something. And, you're just like all the money in these contests is up top in the finals round. And so you want to make sure you're pretty live in the finals. And like I wouldn't really go into a lot of these with the strategy. I think the biggest thing that you got to figure out is like getting a feel for what the average draft position is. And knowing like how you can be nimble with that, right? So like right off the bat, when we took Embiid, I was like, okay, we could like try to get Harden and like try to do some Philly stuff, but Philly's like kind of weak because outside of Embiid and Harden, like it's just not really that fun because like Harris and Maxey like have some good games, but if like you got to assume if Philly makes the finals, like they're doing it on the back of Embiid and Harden, and like I don't know, I just maybe Harris needs to be better or whatever, but it's just not really that a fun way to draft. And so then I was like, okay, well, I knew all the Warriors are like super easy to get at the end, right? So then it's like, okay, you can kind of pivot, grab Steph, and kind of go from there. So that's a lot of the fun part of it is like kind of being in the draft rooms and like trying to figure out like, okay, how do I be nimble on my toes here and still make a pretty sweet lineup?
Nice. I'm definitely. I think I'm gonna dip my toes into the
You got it, dude.
with the warm ups. I think I'm gonna rip a couple of those.
$3, dude.
Yeah, and then the max you can do is 10, right? So I'm not gonna.
Max you can do is 10.
I'm not gonna black out and end up in crippling debt, which is always nice
Exactly.
too.
It's fun too because you just have a sweat for the whole playoffs, right? Each round you're kind of sweating it and see what
Thank
happens.
God. Yeah, who can enjoy sports when you're just like watching it, right? I will. I'll have to. I'll update you in the group chat, John, about because I feel like I'll definitely be ripping. So
yeah, I love it.
Nice. Well, is there anything else we wanted to talk about before we close it up? I know this was took like a 15-minute detour doing something we usually don't do. So before we close it out, is there anything pressing on anyone's minds that they need to talk about? Any strategies that we need to let the people know about, or are we good?
No, I'm good.
I think we covered it all. I think we covered a lot of the hot stuff.
Cool.
That was a fun little playoff talk. I feel like as the next couple weeks go and we either get some more clarity with SoRare and what they're doing for playoffs, or get a little bit more locked in on seeding, it'll be fun to keep talking through that.
Do we want to do like a quick fire with Top Shot?
Yeah, we can.
I just like the whole MGLE Paolo challenge was super interesting from a locking perspective. Just makes me think so much, like just thinking back, like if challengers were always locking, how that would have like changed things dynamic wise. Like obviously after a year it would wear off from those specific moments, but just how people felt, I think too, is like because they wouldn't instantly feel burned, so it'd be a lot like longer, I think. So I think about that often, and just like the power of that mechanism when it is focused on a very sought after reward, and just the fact that they came out with that announcement, which was like, was it just it was just a tweet, right? That was finally announced. I feel like they kind of snuck that in when they announced that Paolo's only rare, like he wouldn't get another rare other than
no, there was they did a whole freaking blog on it. I was checking it out today.
Was it a whole blog? But like they didn't announce the blog in Discord or something. Like,
no, it was like a super under the radar.
I remember looking for it.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I didn't even think to do the old blog search.
Yeah, I mean, we could. Does Paolo already have a fandom moment? I mean, I think what my point is, I think we'll obviously see his legendary. We might see him pop up in like a different common set.
No, he's not going to get a fandom.
Oh, okay, that's good. I mean, good.
So they basically outlined in the blog what he's going to get for the rest of the season. And it's essentially no other rares. He's
wasn't he going to get the Rookie of the Year rare?
Well, that's this reward player board leaderboard rare.
Yeah, okay? It's one rare max from NBA regular season, not including leaderboard rewards.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. So he'll have two rares total, 2 legendaries or 1 legendary, and then his debut, and that's it.
PP should be banned for thinking Lindy Waters is a rookie. All right, that was my only quote. He's not a rookie. He's not a rookie.
He could, for legendary, he's gonna get a rookie relevation, obviously.
Yeah.
And then rookie of the year, he can get one.
Yeah. So that's a rare though,
right? He could get a top 50 one too.
Yeah, he could get a top 50 if he's voted in.
Okay.
Which I don't know. That might be high, but he's for sure. He's going to get the 2 leaderboards. He's going to get the first team and rookie of the year leaderboards, the rare and the legendary, and then he's going to just get the rookie revelation legendary. So essentially that blog confirmed that he's not going to get a fandom. He's not going to get another rare. And did it leave the door open still for him to be in fucking Hustle and Show or some of these stupid ones?
It doesn't like distinctly say no, but it says like a list of common, and it only says his rookie debut. And then it's fandom, there will not be a fandom.
I think all they said was that there won't be a base set moment of him, like we've seen in past years with rookies. So
I think the what we saw with the MGLE challenge here is really exciting, and I think and the point of it's funny because I posted about it today, and like obviously the Jokic is like for $3,000 or whatever it is because there's only 2 listings. It's just funny things like that. And like that's cool, that's fine. Like there's less than 10 listings for each of the moments, right? So the prices are going to be a little bit wonky. The spread on like offer to lowest ask is pretty wide on some of these, so it's not like true pricing, right? But
yeah,
it is kind of interesting to see what happens when like the demand goes crazy like it is. And all of the moments have over 75% of their moments locked, right? So
wow.
you talk about a guy like Jalen Duren, or Cam Thomas, some of the guys who don't really have any rares. If for whatever reason they were to hit in a rare flash challenger, so could be some action there. So there's some potential for that, but I think I posted about it, and Alexa was like, what was the reason? Or I think he made a comment about like why do you think it happened for this, right? And obviously his underlying point was like, it went all crazy like because it was Paolo's MGLE, and there's only one moment or whatever. And my like argument, not an argument, but like my point back was like yes, correct, like all this crazy shit happened because it was Paolo. Like this isn't going to happen for the Clay that's going up right now.
Yeah,
Although Clay doesn't have that many rares either, so it's not going to be as
he has
crazy, but
enough,
there could be some action. But it wouldn't happen for like Jaylen Brown or somebody like that with a bunch of moments. And so, but my point was more so like it did happen because of the scarcity thing, right? So like for everybody who's like fucking giving me double birds every time I talk about why are they making more moments, it's like cool shit happens when like there's scarcity, right? It's like
and when
cool,
people want it,
people want stuff when there is scarcity, and like the ship has freaking sailed on so many players already. And but they are taking this approach of like select what you love or whatever the fuck, where it's like, why don't you try to like make things more scarce? Like why don't we not create
Make me
a
love
bunch
it
of
more.
well, and
like make me yeah, like make me love it more. Exactly, don't just make me want to throw more money at it. Like,
and I think the thing is too is like it's not that we're like throwing out like this is how Top Shot should be run. It's we were promised this by Top Shot, like that scarcity is important, and that like so this is what we expected, and now like this is a good example of like when they actually deliver on what they said, like people can when people know, hey, they're not going to mint 2 fandoms of Paolo and another rare and all this, they can buy with confidence or collect what they love with confidence. I don't think anyone's trying to make $1 million on Top Shot. They just want to like. I mean, the question is, why would I buy something now if there's a 99% chance it'll be like 50% less in a month from now? And by them laying out these very specific rules and ensuring collectors, hey, this Paolo moment is special. Like it's not just another moment over his 30-year career. 20-year career, 15-year career, where he's going to have probably a rare and a legendary every single year. Like,
well, and I think my point is like okay, if you look at most of the players now, all of them just have way too many fucking moments. But the like I don't know, and maybe they just need to freaking make moments because Austin and Brandon need something to do, and they need to make a minimum every year, and there's got to be so many plays to tell the fucking story of the season or whatever. But in my opinion, like they should have been doing whatever they can in Series 4 and Series 5 and Series 6 and whatever to like regulate this supply, right? They have all the burning mechanism in place. They locking, like, I still think is just kind of fake news, but maybe it works and people keep locking and whatever. But I don't really think that's going to happen. But
Yeah, I don't think so either.
like they why have they not done any player specific burning stuff this year, really, right? Like that's like one of the bigger misses to me. Is like, why hasn't someone been able to burn a shit ton of Jason Tatum moments to get another Jason Tatum rare or something? Like, I don't know. Like we've all talked about a million different ways they can do this, and I've have many posts about how they could have done things for like MGLE drops specifically, but like having this like very specific, get rid of player supply to get new player supply out there and be very targeted, like burn 2 Jason Tatum rares in order to get his MGLE this year. And his MGLE this year is going to be his only rare, and like just like things like that like slowly start to negate that supply. And like what like the and I know commons are stupid and nobody cares about commons and they're all dollar and shut the fuck up. But like what, like the Spotlight series, just the dumbest fucking series in Top Shot history. Like just the dumbest
Apparently,
fucking thing.
it's going to
Just
be
so stupid.
150 moments, and they're
Yeah, it's
all
gonna be 150 moments. There's still
pointless.
95 to go. There's already 55 out there. They're all worth $1 or $2. There's still 95 to go. And it's like, what is the point of this? Like there's already a
Do you
shit ton of
think they
base moments.
cancel Hustle and Show, and what's the other one?
They should
I think-
cancel Extra Spice.
Yeah, I think they
I
should.
think they cancel both.
I mean, I'm
I don't
hustling
think-
show till I die, but I also
I don't think
kind
they'll
of-
cancel. I think
There's no way they will.
people would freak out, but I could see them. I could see them shortening up the Spotlight series, which shouldn't exist to begin with. But whatever.
Yeah, I agree. I couldn't agree more. It's like
I do think this proves that like that 399 number might be a pretty good number for the MGLE set.
Yeah.
And I think it's really positive that we already know that next year it's going to be 399.
yeah,
Assuming that they can, this is also assuming that A, they can hold on to all their current users, and B, they can gain more users, because like we're adding 399 for, I'd guess somewhere between like 75 and 90% of these players are repeating again next year.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, then 399 is fine as long as they maintain and gain some new users as well. And like that's kind of what needs to happen, but like they can't just keep lowering every year and just because they're not gaining new users. Like obviously we all know that is like a key for long term, is it can't be these users forever.
Yeah. Well, there's our Top Shot Talk.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it is really cool because I'll say this even though it should be obvious. Like all three of us and Mike like love Top Shot. We're obviously not rooting against it. We just have screamed these things for so long, and it's fallen on deaf ears. So I mean, I think we're all excited to see some life, but I don't think any of us are holding our breath that Top Shot's going to make fundamental economic changes on how they handle supply and pack releases. But who knows? Maybe
the part that pisses me off about that is like, so like, and the AMA was stupid, and we already talked about last week. But they asked about the economic thing, and like Roham's literally like main answer was, "Oh, we just need to really provide clarity around like mint count constraints and like blah 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 blah," and like that was like his fucking response. And so like they came out with the blog that said, "Hey, it's Series 5, like we can confirm these are going to be the mint counts for these sets." It's like, Dude, that shit is not moving the needle for people. Like, yeah, oh, yeah, that's great. MJLE's next series are going to be out of $3.99, but like, that's not what people are asking about. Like that's like a given. Like, if you made them more than $3.99 next series, like, what are you smoking, dude? Like it's like they're thinking like that is like a positive. Like, oh, we're keeping it consistent. It's like we're asking for you to do like cool shit, like make like make us think about how to buy an MGLE pack and make us like spend some moments on it or trade tickets or trading in rares for a rare or whatever. Like, I don't know, just make us do anything.
But it's also, even if we just stick to like mint counts, it's like, okay, that $3.99 is great for the MGLE set, but it means absolutely shit all if they can have 3 other rares or whatever. And it was the same thing at the start of the year when they came out with their roadmap and it was 5 blogs long, one day after the other. And then in the end, we're like, we have no information on an individual player restrictions. All we know is that all these little like things, and there's going to be out of this much and that much, and it's just like this, and it's just like it's the same thing to think about when playoff comes around in like, you know, a couple months too, and when we get all those drops, and it's like, okay, like we need like guidelines on individual players, not just that, because okay, your MGLE is at $3.99, but then you invent another rare set and give someone like a challenge reward the day after you do a challenge reward and MGLE for them.
Yeah. Like if they would have simply done the thing that All Day did, where they said 2 commons, 1 rare for everybody. Like, I don't know. I feel like there would have been some pockets where that created some hype this year.
Oh yeah.
Outside, like there would have been some more of these Palo things. Maybe not, but there would have probably been a couple more of those situations, and just a simple statement like that, and you know, it all came full circle this week when because that was the shit we were all talking about that, you know, when the first blog came out, and I had a whole tweet about like none of the shit matters if you don't put up constraints and blah blah blah. And we were in community builders channel like screaming at them about like like none of this shit fucking matters if you don't say like how many comments are gonna get in rares or whatever. And then Top Shot Shark finally came around, man. He finally came around this week. He was battling me from day one. He said, no, we're getting a bunch of new users. None of this matters. Make more moments. And then this week, he's like, he finally folded. He's like, he had like a similar tweet to me. He's like, why did they not give constraints for how many fandoms and rares and blah, blah. I'm like, it only took you 80% of the NBA season, but you finally came around, baby. Welcome to the club.
Welcome to the resistance. Yeah, and I don't know. I think it ultimately just comes down to we've all suggested ways that they could actually like start to make changes, like and operate net negative in order to fix some of the mistakes. But it ultimately comes down to them taking a revenue hit, and it seems like they would rather squeeze every penny out of their existing users than like stop the gravy train to try and fix things for the long term. So yeah, I mean, we're all hoping it changes, but yeah, it was good to see. It was good to see some positive stuff coming from Top Shot. I miss those days a lot. That was a lot of fun. All right, I think we're gonna go ahead and end it there. I think we've had a pretty solid show, and since Mike's not here and you know the show's gone, we've already gone an hour and a half. We'll save the UFC talk.
He's banking his minute. He's banking his minute. Strategically banking his minute.
We'll do a double minute next week. For actually JebBush, I'm not going to be putting out any content. It's tax season, so make sure to check out TST's channel. Are you doing anything, TST?
Yeah, I'll put some out tomorrow.
Okay, cool. Look for TST's channel. Obviously, if you're not subscribed to him, go and fix that now. And then John, excited for you and Mike to get those playoff best ball streams rolling. Yeah,
you might have just witnessed the only one, but
all right. Hope everyone has a good day, and leave a comment if you think you have a solution to fixing SoRare. So I'll see you guys next week. Bye.